What's up, everybody? Kyle here, and oh my goodness. Today, Sony released Spider-Man Far From Home teaser trailer number 1, and I am so incredibly hyped for it. It just looks like such a great movie. And yeah, I'm just gonna give you some of my thoughts for it. So I mean, the last time we saw Spider-Man was obviously at the end of Avengers Infinity War, with him and Tony Stark, the part of the Guardians, and Doctor Strange chilling on Titan, and obviously, after Thanos snaps, we got that whole meme of, I don't feel so good, Mr. Stark. So obviously, I believe Sony has already released that this movie, Far From Home, is going to take place after the events of Avengers Endgame, which, I mean, obviously, somehow in that movie, the snap is going to be reversed and stuff. We're not focusing on that in this video, but yeah, so this takes place after Infinity War, it takes place after Endgame, so, and we actually can see that with, the city of New York starting to rebuild a little bit, and in the first shot, you see May, who is with Peter in a homeless support shelter, obviously, and which is interesting because there's no signs or anything, but I believe this is the MCU version of Feast. If you don't know, Feast Shelter is a organization that Aunt May Parker helps to start. A lot of people are going to be familiar with it because of the Spider-Man PS4 game, actually, where Martin Lee helped create Feast with May Parker or whatever. So that's something we're not going to focus on that right now. But yeah, so that was kind of a cool nod to see that, after she finds out, that moment in Homecoming where she sees that, oh my goodness, wait a second, so you're telling me that Peter is actually Spider-Man, and she swears and all that sort of stuff, and so she's doing her part to help the city of New York. Which, I mean, after Infinity War, when Ebony Maw, aka Squidward, and Black Dwarf, but in the Infinity War they called him Coal Obsidian, I believe. Once they come down to New York, they wreck some stuff by bringing one of Thanos' ships down, and then also you see there's also the destruction of the city from the end of Infinity War, when you get that trailer, the post-credit scene with Nick Fury and Maria Hill, when they disappear. You see sort of the impact of, the people disappearing, like the helicopter. Obviously the pilot disappeared and it goes straight into a skyscraper. We're actually going to talk more about that in a later video on this channel, about sort of the impact of the snap and things like that. But for right now, obviously it's good to see May Parker working to help those, people that have been damaged by the events of all this sort of stuff. And it's good to see that, she's accepting of Peter being Spider-Man, and, they're helping each other and that sort of stuff. Then obviously, you see Happy Hogan, who has been a big part in the Iron Man and Spider-Man movies. Obviously, he's sort of taken the role as the caretaker sort of Spider-Man, helping him with Tony and things like that. And he has his weird moment with May Parker, but I mean, we're not gonna read too much into that. I think that's just a funny moment. Obviously, it looks like he's stalking May, obviously, but whatever. So, this whole plot of this movie is, Peter is, he's going on a school trip with, people from Midtown School of Science and Technology, and they're going to Europe, which is, that's awesome. And you see, he's packing up his things, and he's debating whether he wants to bring the Spider-Man suit, which, to me, that really shows the Peter Parker character a lot. In previous movies, especially in Spider-Man 2 with Tobey Maguire, you see after he sort of loses his powers a little bit in that one, he focuses on his own life, and it's good to see that, maybe Peter is taking that sort of direction that you see sometimes in the comics, where he fights with the struggle of, hey, he wants to be Spider-Man and he wants to help people, but he also wants to be Peter Parker, which is which is really cool to see that they, they're trying to link that gap a little bit, of like, hey, like it's a balance or whatever. And because I mean, in Homecoming it was all about, hey, I want to be Spider-Man, I want to be an Avenger, and that's why the subplot of Tony Stark taking away the suit, all that stuff. So it's good to see that he's debating what if he wants to take the suit or not. But unfortunately for him though, after he gets to Europe, presumably, obviously you see the scene where he's talking about MJ and things like that with Ned, and Nick Fury comes out and shoots a blow dart into Ned's neck or whatever, and that sort of shows that the world needs Spider-Man, and especially like the superhero community, and that's where we get into the cool. In my aspect, he's sort of like undercover. So like take like a Mission Impossible movie, right? Going to an exotic location and doing these crazy stunts and things like that. Like that's sort of what I feel like this movie. It's not gonna be like a heist movie, like a spy movie or whatever. I think that'd be sort of like Ant-Man and the Wasp, sort of kind of, but sort of him like being in an unfamiliar territory and going on these missions and things like that. Because I mean that's what he wanted. He wanted to do missions with the Avengers and superhero missions and things like that. And I think it's cool that they're bringing Nick Fury in to do that. Which I mean, it doesn't answer a lot of questions for Avengers Endgame, obviously, because a lot of people are talking about the possibility of Tony Stark or Captain Rogers, biting the dust or whatever. And there's not really a mention of that. Well, until a little bit. We'll get to that in a second though. But and I'm glad it's Nick Fury too. Because one question, this is off topic, so I'm sorry about that, but obviously Star Wars exists in the Marvel Cinematic Universe, and the question I have is, does the prequel trilogy? Obviously, we've seen that Episode 4, 5, and 6 do, because obviously Peter Parker mentions in Civil War, hey, have you seen that really old movie, Empire Strikes Back? And you see Ned and Peter building the Lego Death Star in Homecoming. So my question is, does the prequel movies exist? Because obviously Samuel L. Jackson is Mace Windu, right? And now that Peter has a chance to meet Nick Fury, that's just weird to me. Obviously, no, there's no connection, obviously, and they're not going to acknowledge that. But I mean, I think it's just funny to think about, this guy who's watched Star Wars movies and things like that, the same person playing one of the characters, he's, doing missions and stuff now, but that's besides the point. Let's continue on. So, the craziest thing about the trailer for me is looking at the people, Peter Parker's having to go against. So, really quickly after you see Nick Fury joining and them talking about protecting friends and things like that, you see Spider-Man go and actually see Nick Fury fighting a giant sort of rock ground monster thing. And first impressions with it, I mean, looking at the rogues gallery that Spider-Man has, I think this might be Sandman. I can't tell. Obviously, there's like a 2-second gap with it. If it's not, it's totally understandable. But there's a great possibility that this could be Sandman. The last time we saw him in a movie was obviously Spider-Man 3 with Tobey Maguire. So keep that in mind. We see Sandman a little bit. That's a good possibility. We also have the possibility of seeing, which is crazy to me that they're actually pulling this far into his rogues gallery, but Hydro Man, and that's just crazy to me. So Hydro Man could be in this movie, and then finally we get the big, I think the main villain in this movie, who's going to be Mysterio, played by Jake Gyllenhaal. Which, all right, his costume looks amazing. It is, they definitely revamped it to make it look modern and more technologically advanced and things like that. Sort of like what they did with Vultures, giving him like mechanical wings and, well, I guess like he has mechanical wings in the comics, but like actually making it look like they have turbines and stuff like that in them. So I mean, and Jake Gyllenhaal, just like, I feel like he will just make a great Mysterio. I mean, I can't place my finger on it, but I mean, I think he's gonna do a good job with it. And he just looks like he looks like Mysterio, like with the costume and everything, and obviously, you know, when he's fighting Hydra Man, which we'll get into in a second, but you know, he's shooting these, you know, his I'm guessing his well, he's using spells and stuff like that, but he looks like he's using gas and things like that, which, I mean, that's a staple of Mysterio, and you know, he just looks like he has an awesome costume, especially when he hits the fishbowl on his head. That is epic. Yeah, so the thing about that, though, which is interesting to me, so if we look back at Spider-Man Homecoming, we had 5 villains in there. We had the Vulture, obviously, we had the Tinkerer, and we had the Shocker, and those 3, you know, worked together in Adrian Toome's sort of little underground operation thing, where they were getting the Chitauri tech, and I guess some Ultron tech too, and away from like damage control, so they could sell it and create weapons. We also saw Aaron Davis, who is the Prowler, which a lot of people are going to know now because of Spider-Man Into the Spider-Verse, because he is the uncle to Miles Morales, and you see that whole subplot play in Spider-Man Into the Spider-Verse. So he's in that too, and he's played by Donald Glover. And then we also had Scorpion, Matt Gargan, who we saw briefly in the movie. He was on the ferry that, you know, Spider-Man webs up Vulture's one of his Chitauri guns, and, you know, it cuts the ferry in half, and that happens. But we also see him at the post-credit scene of Spider-Man Homecoming, which he's talking to Vulture, and they are discussing, you know, he's like, yeah, do you know his name or whatever, because, you know, I have some guys on the outside. So there's 5 villains right there from Homecoming, and this one, seeing from this just the trailer alone, we have Mysterio, we have Hydra Man, and we have Sandman, and that brings it up to 8, meaning that we have a possibility of, I think personally, in the next Spider-Man movie, which is going to be far away, obviously, not like location. It's probably going to go back to New York, but it's going to be a little bit a while away as far as time goes. But I honestly think we're going to have a Sinister Six movie, where Spider-Man fights the Sinister Six, and that would be insane to me, because we haven't seen the Sinister Six in a Spider-Man actual like movie. Because I mean, in the first, like, so the Tobey Maguire series, we had the first one, he fought Green Goblin, obviously. Second one was Doc Ock. The third one was a mixture between like Venom, Sandman, and I guess Harry Osborn Green Goblin was good at the end, so we won't count that. The Amazing Spider-Man with Andrew Garfield. In one of them he fought the Lizard, and the other one was like the Green Goblin, and they had some sub characters, like I think Felicia Hardy was one of them. I haven't really watched those. And then obviously, you know, Homecoming, we already listed those, so we haven't had a Sinister Six hit the big screen besides in well, I guess a live action Sinister Six. I guess, you know, I keep forgetting about Into the Spider-Verse, and obviously that had the Sinister Six from the same universe as Miles Morales in that movie. So yeah, that'd just be insane to me. I definitely think, as far as the members of that Sinister Six, I would probably say Scorpion, obviously. He looks like he has a grudge against Peter Parker. Maybe Vulture. I'd like to see Vulture come back, played by Michael Keaton. I think he would do good for the role and help fill out some of that depth in that Sinister Six. Obviously, Mysterio would be a big part with Jake Gyllenhaal. Sandman would be a cool one too. And I don't know, the last two are kind of up in the air. I think there's going to be a villain introduced in that movie that will, assemble the team. It could be Doc Ock, it could be Green Goblin, who knows. And then the other one, I have no idea. It could be the Prowler, it could be Hydra Man. It's really up in the air at this point, but yeah, we could get a Sinister Six movie, I think, which is crazy to me. But alright, enough about the villains. Actually, let's go talk about Mysterio a little more. And this, it seems like he is, I don't know why, but it seems like he is, acting as a good guy, but I think that is just a front. I think, he's using some of his magic, or he's using illusions and things like that to trick people, in order to making it seem like he's a good guy, but obviously I think he is bad. And an interesting thing that happens during this fight is you see some of Peter's friends watching this footage of Mysterio fighting Hydra Man, and they say that he's a mix between Iron Man and Thor. And to me, that is that's interesting the way they worded that. So we're gonna go into Endgame real fast for like 30 seconds. So in my mind, if say Tony Stark dies in Endgame, I mean, why would they refer to him like that? Yeah, he looked like Iron Man mixed with Thor. I don't know. It just, to me, the wording of it is a little iffy. Who knows? Obviously, like, I can't predict the future, and I don't know what's gonna be an Endgame, but I don't know. I honestly hope Tony Stark lives through Endgame, but we'll see. But yeah, so it's certainly possible that we'll see more of Tony Stark. But yeah, so he definitely does look like a mix between Iron Man and Thor. And yeah, the final thing I want to touch on the trailer, which I thought was super cool, is obviously at the beginning we see Peter leaves his Spider-Man suit in New York. And that's obviously the Stark suit, the one that Tony Stark gives to him in Civil War. And then, so obviously he leaves in New York, he doesn't have it, and he gets a new suit, which we've already seen pictures of and things like that. So his new suit looks really similar to the old the Stark suit, but the color scheme of it is red and black, and it just looks epic. It obviously continues to have the sort of like wings, I guess, because we can see him actually gliding throughout the city. I think that's London, I'm not really sure, but yeah, it just looks epic. And we also see another suit, which I think we've seen pictures of too. It looks like to be a stealth suit. Some people have related it to Spider Noir, but it doesn't. It's not that at all. I think it's an undercover sort of suit, which, I mean, makes sense if he's working with Nick Fury. Obviously, Nick Fury is all about stealth and, you know, not having his intentions known and things like that. But who knows? It just looks awesome. It looks like similar to you know, the Captain America's armor from Winter Soldier, and that is one of my favorite Captain America armors and things like that. And yeah, I'm loving this stealth suit. It just looks epic. Obviously still has the same lenses as the Stark suit, and those are a staple for this Spider-Man. So yeah, so that's the Spider-Man Far From Home trailer. I am so pumped about this movie. I think it is going to be absolutely epic. And which is crazy to think we still have Captain Marvel to come before that, and Endgame. Oh my goodness, it's going to be an amazing year for Marvel. So yeah, this is my first video here on YouTube. So yeah, expect more things like this, talking about trailers, nerd things like that. Also going to be reviewing some movies, talking about comics, and, you know, just playing some games. So if you enjoyed, make sure to click like or dislike. Any feedback helps for me, honestly. If you have any specific things, you can put them down in the comments, or if you want to see more, just subscribe. You don't have to ring the bell, but I mean, just hitting subscribe helps a lot to see. So yeah, I really hope you guys enjoyed. And so this has been Kyle, and go crack some eggs.